Welcome to the deep dive. We've got this fascinating set of sources you sent over, all focused on the 17th century Iranian philosopher Mulla Sadra.
Yes, Sadr al-Muta'allihin, an incredible figure.
And we're launching a special series today, a real deep dive into his work. He's often called the master of the transcendent, and, well, his system really shook things up, didn't it? Integrating Islamic wisdom, philosophy, mysticism.
Oh, absolutely. His historical significance is just monumental. I mean, we're talking about someone who tackled these deep intellectual problems, theological, philosophical knots.
Things that have been around for ages.
Exactly. Dilemmas stretching across Islamic, Jewish, and Christian thought for centuries. And he didn't just engage with them, he offered genuinely sophisticated solutions where others had, frankly, hit a wall.
Now, for this series, our analysis, it comes directly from conversations with contemporary Iranian philosophers, people like Dr. Ibrahim Dinani and Dr. Esmail Mansouri Larijani.
That's right. And because we're working with translations of some very complex, nuanced discussions, we do need to include a quick disclaimer here.
Yes. This podcast is a translation and reproduction of conversations with Iranian philosophers like Dr. Ibrahim Dinani and Dr. Esmail Mansouri Larijani. Some concepts or details may not be fully conveyed. We apologize in advance for any discrepancies. The language of Hikmah can be incredibly dense.
That's crucial context, thanks. So our mission today, right at the start, is pretty foundational. We need to get our heads around why Mulla Sadra called his whole system the Transcendent Wisdom, al-Muta'aliyah, what actually makes it transcendent.
Was it just a cool name or something deeper?
Exactly. Was it just marketing, or did the name itself point to how the philosophy actually works?
Well, it was definitely structural. Absolutely. Mulla Sadra himself gave us the clue. He said, in the beginnings, the Bidayat, he follows the path of earlier philosophers. He learns the ropes, masters the tradition.
Okay.
But then in the conclusions, the Nihayat, he separates himself. He goes beyond.
So it implies stages. Building on what came before, but then leaping past it. Precisely. It's about intellectual evolution. He absorbs everything, elevates it, and then transcends the existing limits. And it's vital to remember just how broad his own background was. He wasn't just a philosopher.
Right, you mentioned.
He was a top-tier jurist, a faqih, a theologian, and a major traditionist, a muhadith, with certified chains of transmission for hadith. He truly mastered both the rational and the transmittive sciences. That's key to understanding why he could build a system integrating them.
Okay, so to grasp that transcendence, that leap, we really need to understand the core mechanism he employed. And that seems to be this concept of tashkik, gradation.
Yes, tashkik. And let's be really clear right off the bat. This word, it sounds like shak, which means doubt in Arabic, but it has absolutely nothing to do with doubt.
Okay, important distinction. So what is it?
Tashkik is the idea that a single unified reality or essence, it can exist across many, many different levels or stages, even infinite levels simultaneously. So you have unity in the basic nature, but a real difference in intensity or perfection.
Can you give an example?
Sure. The classic one is light. Think about light. It's one reality, right? It's just light.
Mm-hmm.
But you experience it in countless degrees. You have the blinding intensity of the sun, maybe a bright 500-watt bulb, then a dimmer 100-watt bulb, right down to a tiny, weak flicker of light you can barely see in a corner.
Okay, got it. They're all light, but obviously very different in strength.
Exactly. All are light, but their reality, their power, their perfection, vastly different. That's tashkik.
So Mulla Sadra takes this idea of gradation and applies it to the biggest concept imaginable, existence itself. Wujud.
That's the core move. If we apply tashkik to existence, yeah, you get a hierarchy. Existence itself is graded.
So at the very top.
At the absolute pinnacle, you have the necessary being, wajib al-Wujud, God. This existence, pure, absolute reality. It's so intense it simply cannot admit non-existence or change or any kind of defect.
Okay, and then downscale.
Down a scale, you eventually hit us.
Yeah.
Contingent beings, humans, angels, sure, but also stones, gnats, everything else that exists but isn't God.
Right, but here's where I get a bit stuck. If Mulla Sadra says God is existence and a stone is existence, isn't that just playing with words? I mean, the gap is infinite. How does tashkik bridge that without just blurring everything together?
That's the crucial question, and his answer is, it's not just semantics, it's about the intensity or the grade of existence. Yes, the stone is existent, Mawjud, but its existence is at a very low grade. It's weak, ephemeral, full of potentiality and defect, constantly changing, decaying.
Right.
God, on the other hand, is existence at the absolute highest, perfect, unchanging grade. The term existent applies to both, But the reality of that existence is defined by its grade, its intensity. This lets him unify metaphysics. Everything shares an existence without conflating God and creation.
Okay, that clarifies things. And what makes his system transcendent, according to our sources, is how broadly he applied this. It wasn't just existence.
Exactly. That's the really revolutionary part. He applied tashkik not just to existence, wujud, but also to knowledge, marifa, and even, fascinatingly, to his own philosophy. His wisdom itself is graded, multi-tiered.
So if existence has levels, and knowledge is how we grasp existence,
Then knowledge itself must have levels too. It must be subject to tashkik. And this immediately connects the intellect to, well, to action and spiritual practice.
right, this is where it gets very practical, almost spiritual. Mulla Sadra apparently believed his highest insights, his highest wisdom, was ayiyah, meaning God-given, or celestial wisdom.
Not just tasaliyah, not just stuff you acquire from books or sheer intellectual effort alone.
Which suggests the intellect, on its own, can only get you so far.
That's right. The highest levels of knowing, the truly transcendent insights, they're seen as granted, bestowed. They aren't achieved solely through human effort, which puts spiritual discipline right at the heart of philosophical attainment for Sadra.
That was the warning.
God, who was a major philosopher himself, strongly advised Sadra against diving too deep into philosophy. He called it a dangerous path.
Dangerous. How so?
He warned it could lead to intellectual ruin, even to denying the most basic truths, like the reality of existence itself. It wasn't just casual advice. It was a serious caution about how profoundly unsettling deep philosophical inquiry can be.
Wow. Okay, so philosophy isn't just a cozy academic subject then. If a master warns his prized student like that, it makes you wonder why anyone would take that risk.
Because, and this is a key insight from the sources, greatness lies in danger. That's the idea. A life lived in intellectual safety, just repeating what's already accepted, well, it leads to a comfortable life, maybe an ordinary one.
But not greatness.
Not greatness. Mulla Sadra seemed to understand that to reach those nihayat, those transcendent conclusions, you have to be willing to walk through the fire. You have to face doubt, risk intellectual transformation. He took that risk, and it wasn't easy. He faced periods of difficulty, even exile from Shiraz for a time, which actually pushed him deeper into spiritual practice, taskiya, during his time in Kahak.
So the risk is intellectual, but also existential in a way. Which brings us back to the link between theory, nizar, and action. Amal, how do they connect in his system?
Well, we usually think of knowledge coming before action, right? And that's true in one sense. Think about Islamic jurisprudence, the rule that all ritual acts need niyat, or intent.
Okay, intention.
Right, and intent is purely mental, intellectual, it's conceptual. So that shows theory, or thought, is a prerequisite for any meaningful action. The mind has to direct the body.
Makes sense.
But Mulla Sadra, drawing on this tradition, sees it as truly reciprocal. Theory leads to action, yes, but action specifically disciplines spiritual practice, tazkiyah, purification of the soul. That action prepares the soul.
Prepares it how?
It refines the intellect, it cleans the mirror, so to speak. It makes the mind capable of receiving those higher God-given grades of knowledge he was after. You can't grasp transcendent truth if your mind, your soul is clouded or undisciplined.
So it's a feedback loop. Theory informs action. Action purifies the soul, which allows for higher theory.
Exactly, a dynamic synthesis of the rational and the spiritual. But, this very breadth, drawing from so many streams, philosophy, mysticism, theology, scripture, leads directly to the biggest criticism leveled against him.
Which is?
That his philosophy isn't original at all. That it's just an eclectic blend or maybe a mashup of everything that came before. Peripatetic Aristotelianism, Mashai, illuminationism, Ishraqi, theology, kalam, mysticism, Irfan, or Sufism.
Okay, I can see how someone might say that, given his wide knowledge.
It's true. He mastered the entire rational heritage available in the Islamic world at the time. I mean, he didn't just read this stuff, he dominated it. Mashai logic, Ishraqi intuition, kalam argumentation, hadith interpretation. He knew Surori's Ishraqi philosophy better than almost anyone.
So he was encyclopedic.
Yeah.
Massively knowledgeable.
Absolutely. And frankly, any truly great philosopher has to know the history of thought. You can't innovate in a vacuum. Unlike maybe physics or medicine, in philosophy, knowing the past is essential. So mastery isn't a flaw, it's a prerequisite.
So the criticism misses the point.
Completely misses the point. Mulla Sadra's genius wasn't in just combining these different schools side by side, like making a salad. It was in assimilating them, digesting that entire vast heritage, and then using it as a foundation to build something utterly new. A genuine innovation, Nuwari.
Okay, so let's nail this down. What are the specific aha moments? The concrete examples of his innovations that show he wasn't just remixing old tunes.
Right, there are several, but maybe four stand out as definitive proof. First, and perhaps most famous, transubstantial motion, harakat jawariya.
Transubstantial motion.
Yeah. Before him, pretty much everyone agreed that a thing's accidents, its color, size, temperature could change, but its underlying substance, its jawar, its essential reality was fixed.
Like a tree grows, loses leaves, changes color,
Yeah.
but it's still fundamentally a tree.
Exactly. Sadr shattered that. He proposed that the very substance of reality is in constant flux, perpetual motion, continuously being renewed and recreated by God moment by moment. This totally upended centuries of Aristotelian physics and metaphysics. It was revolutionary.
Wow, okay, that's big. What else?
Second, his unique take on the proof of the veracious, the Burhan al-Siddiqin. He reformulated this classic proof for God's existence so that it relied purely on the necessary implications of existence itself without needing to start from contingent beings or motion like earlier versions. It's considered incredibly elegant.
And you mentioned his ideas about the soul.
That's the third one, a really distinctive view on the soul's journey. He argued for the soul's corporeality of occurrence, meaning it originates from the physical body, from matter, but its spirituality of subsistence, meaning it evolves and transforms through its life and actions into a purely spiritual, immortal being.
So born from body becomes spirit.
In essence, yes, a radical synthesis. And finally, number 4, his development of the theory of the union of the knower and the known, itiyad al-kul wa al-makul.
Union of knower and known. Sounds mystical.
It has mystical dimensions, but it's a profound epistemological claim, too. It means that when the intellect, the knower, ditano akal, truly grasps an intelligible object, makil, the intellect doesn't just possess an image of the object, it actually becomes one with the form of that object. The act of knowing transforms the knower.
Okay, those 4, transubstantial motion, the proof of the veracious, the soul's journey, the union of knower and known, those definitely sound like original contributions, not just blending.
Absolutely. Calling him merely eclectic is either ignorance or just unfair. He was a genuine originator.
Yet despite this innovation, his work is still seen as notoriously difficult, isn't it? Even for specialists. Why is that?
Yeah, it is. Part of it is actually that tashkit concept again. His writing style is often deceptively elegant, it flows beautifully, so you read it and you think you've got it.
For you've only grasped a lower level.
Exactly. You might have grasped the basic idea, but you haven't reached the higher grades of meaning he intended. Truly understanding him, following him up that gradient of knowledge, it often requires a specific methodology, a particular way of reading, and ideally, guidance from a skilled teacher. That chest-to-chest tradition of learning is often mentioned in relation to his school.
Interesting.
And historically, his full genius wasn't widely recognized right away. It took maybe a century or so after his death for scholars like Mirza Maneki al-Masi and especially Mullah Hadi Sabzawari to really systematize his teachings and make them more accessible, cementing his status as the master of the transcendent.
So let's try to wrap up this first deep dive. Mulla Sadra's system, al-Muta'allihin, it's called Transcendent Wisdom because it's fundamentally multi-tiered, based on pashkik, the gradation of existence and knowledge. Attaining the highest levels isn't just about book smarts. It requires intense spiritual practice, ataskia, to receive that God-given wisdom.
Right. Action is essential.
And critically, despite drawing on everything before him, his system represents genuine, radical innovation concepts, like transubstantial motion, prove he wasn't just an eclectic blender, but a true originator.
Absolutely. And his legacy shows that this philosophical quest, this striving for deeper understanding, it never really ends. His thought is still incredibly rich, still yielding insights. It truly lives up to the name Transcendent Wisdom. There's always more to discover.
Well, thank you for guiding us through that introduction. That sets the stage perfectly. And for you listening, maybe a final thought to consider. If Sadra suggests greatness lies in intellectual risk, in facing that danger Mir Damad warned about, what fundamental assumption in your own worldview might you need to challenge to potentially achieve a more transcendent understanding?
A great question to ponder.
Indeed. Next time, we'll dive headfirst into one of those major innovations, the fascinating and revolutionary concept of transubstantial motion, harakat jahariya. We hope you'll join us then.